can all sit. Now, where's this pointed to? Is this video or just audio? Audio? Okay.
And I have a client number. She's gone. So I'm going to send her over to you. The client number for an offer tonight.
Okay.
The client number, but also a good friend. I'll send her off.
Okay. Okay, so welcome everybody. I know we just have a little over an hour. It's a it normally takes a little longer. So I will go through it fairly quickly because there's also many of these things you understand already.
Hello, he's starting.
But I think you'll also find this very helpful, especially because the condominium market is still very strong and you need to understand how to react very quickly to things. And I think as a background, it's really to understand, especially what we look for when we're reviewing the status certificate. And so that just for that alone, it is worth your being here. How many of you have taken a course with me before? Okay, how many have not taken a course with me? How many get my emails, my video emails? You find them helpful?
Yes.
So if you would like to be on my list, just give me at the end of the class today a business card with your email address, and I'll put you on my list. Where's Celeste? It's not working. No.
I have her number.
Can somebody find Celeste? She's just here.
I'll call her.
Or call her. Just tell her the clicker not working. Okay, so while we're waiting for just a moment, I'll give you a little bit of a commercial about my firm. You have my brochure here. If you haven't used us, I don't understand why not. But the main difference between us and all the other firms is the car. We 95% of our clients, we drive to their home to sign them up. And so they don't have to miss work. They don't have to deal with parking, weather. We go 7 days a week up till midnight to the client home. And you work those hours, and so do we. And we sign people up with an iPad, and that's considered an original signature. And that way, we can put a deal together extremely quickly. Email the papers to the person on the road, client signed up, and the papers are emailed back. The person doesn't even have to come back to the office. And you see, we have 35 offices. I close deals now all over Ontario because we can see people all over Ontario face to face. And we keep all these extra offices so that clients who are buyers can pick up keys. That's why we have all these extra offices. So buyers, it's not working.
Clicker.
So it's the other piece put in. Okay, and for sellers, what we do is we give all the sellers our own company lockbox. So that way the seller leaves the keys in our lockbox when they leave on the day of closing. And when we have the money in our trust account, we give the buyer lawyer the code to the lockbox. And that way the buyer doesn't have to go to his lawyer halfway across town to pick up the keys. They can go right to the property. How many of you think that's a better solution?
That's a great idea.
And that's what we do. And is it working? Okay. And people ask me, oh, great, thank you. People ask me, what about the lockbox? So we give it to the buyer as a gift because it's cheaper for a lockbox than to courier keys to a buyer lawyer. So it's ridiculous, and it's a gift. So it's just much easier for a buyer to deal with. So I've been doing this for 35 years. I've written books. So my book for salespeople is #1 in the province. I wrote a book for buyers and sellers, which explains the agreement of purchase and sale, which is also top seller at the bookstore. And I've written a guide for landlords, which explains everything you need to know about the new government lease and all the clauses you can add to the government lease. So as I said earlier, we close deals everywhere. And one of the main differences between my firm and all the other firms is we have a trust account at every bank. And as a result, we save the buyers the stress of having to come to an office on the day of closing with a bank draft or a certified check to close the deal. You have no idea how stressful that is for a buyer on the day of closing, so we make it easy. We don't allow it. Instead, we just say to the client, where do you bank? Doesn't matter, Scotia, Royal, TD, CIBC. I have a trust account in every bank. So they just go to the branch and they can do a transfer from their account to my account for free. Night before closing, day before closing, even the morning of closing. Some do it right from their computer. And we see the money instantly in our trust account and we close the deal. Is that a better solution?
Yep.
That is, we found, incredibly simple for our clients. We also deposit the commission that way. So you never have to look for a check. The money's already in your trust account because that's how we do it. And if the deal closes right now, this morning at 11:10, then you're notified within 60 seconds that the deal has closed. How many of you would like that, to be notified? You never have to call me. You'll know just when I know that the deal's closed because I'm copied on the email to you saying, congratulations, the deal has closed, and I'm available for advice. So as an example, before I came here this morning, I reviewed already 3 status certificates so that buyers could put in offers later today without a condition. And I don't charge for this because I don't do this for the buyer, frankly. The buyer will use me to close the deal. I do this for the realtor so that you can say to a buyer that they won't have to pay for a lawyer to check the status certificate. And it doesn't take me very long to do it. And I'm going to explain to you how I do it as we go through. So going through it, I'll give a little bit of a history so you understand why it's important. Condominium started in 1967. And even then, it provided the ability of people to have a home ownership who couldn't afford a detached house. This is even more true today because of the market. People start in condominiums and they don't have to worry about snow shoveling or lawn maintenance because their maintenance fees provides all that. But you're living in a democracy. And so now you don't have control over decisions. And it doesn't matter if you're a 1-bedroom studio or a 3-bedroom, you have 1 vote at condominium meetings. It's 1 vote per unit. So this is a bit of a background. And there are different kinds of condominiums. Most of you are familiar with the standard freehold condominium, where somebody owns a unit and then a percentage of the building. Does anybody see a magic marker here somewhere?
If there is, it would be over there by the.
I don't see it by the
Hold
machine.
on, let me see if I can. I'll see if I can.
Cabinet, maybe?
I'll check for you.
Yeah, if you could see it. Okay, so how many are familiar with a standard condominium? So you buy a unit and then you share ownership of the balcony, of the hallways, party rooms, tennis court, swimming pool. You share that with the other owners. There's a vacant land. This is typically found in cottage country where you buy a piece of land as a condominium and you can build your own house on it. And so what you're sharing is a rec center or a golf course. So the rec center or a golf course is what everybody shares ownership of. It's a little bit different. You don't find them here. You find them, as I said, up north. Now, how many of you have seen this, what's called a common element condominium, where it looks like freehold, but then there's this $100 a month fee? How many of you have seen that? Okay, so what that is a PODL, and it's called it actually stands for a parcel of tied lands, and the form you use is 111. How many of you are familiar with this? Okay, so let me explain what this means, because you'll see this. It is a condominium. It'll have a status certificate. I'm sorry that I don't have a marker, but I'll just quickly go over what this is. Maybe my pen will work just for illustration. So imagine you own this piece of land. You could build 2 lots because of the frontage. This is no good for a builder because they want to build more. So they build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 freehold homes. So these are all freehold. The problem is this isn't sufficient access for the city to grant a road. So what they do instead is create a condominium of the road. So all these people have freehold homes, but they're tied together. That's the way we call them bottles. And they each have an interest in this condominium. There are no units in this condominium, it's just a common element. So the $100 a month goes to pave, light, insurance for the road. So that's why it still has a status certificate that has to be reviewed, but I've never had one of these have a problem because it's very little, 75 to 100 bucks. So it's freehold with a condominium. So, and if you have that, you must use 111. I get agents making this mistake all the time. I've seen them put on freehold. I've seen them put on condominium resales. This is the form you have to use, 111. Does that help? Okay, you already learned something you need to know. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through the steps a developer has to go through to create condominium, because I think it'll help you to understand the process. So a lot of these things are being done at the same time, but the longest is to get like a zoning approval. That could take 2 years. But while that's going on, they're preparing the 2 main condominium documents, which I'll describe, the declaration and the description, and they're sent to the province for approval. So that takes a few months. That is being done at the exact same time. And the presentation center is then built for buyers. So they're already selling condominiums to lineups, even though they don't have the government approvals to build a condominium. And most of them will get them, and they'll start construction a year or 2 down the road. But all the agreements say, if they don't get these approvals, all the buyers get is the money back. Now we've seen many condominiums not go ahead. You've read in the papers, the agreement allows them not to go ahead if the builder doesn't get all his conditions satisfied. It doesn't stop them. You have a marker. It doesn't stop them from selling units. And most people, frankly, don't even care if it takes longer for the builder to get their approvals, because their units are just going up in value. You see, people who buy condominiums 4 or 5 years ago, they generally are paying on closing. The only thing that's killing them is the new mortgage rules, because the new mortgage rules they didn't count on and count for. But it's people who buy new houses from builders that get caught, because the new house turnaround is 15 months. So if you bought in any time in the beginning of 2017, you can't afford your house is worth less than you paid for it. So those people get into serious problems. Condos generally. Okay, so what does the declaration contain? It has all the rights and restrictions of the owner. So people ask me, do you own your parking unit, locker, or is it an exclusive use? That is in the declaration. Many of the older condominiums you find are exclusive use. Most of the ones in the last 10 years, the person who owns the unit. Is it better to own the unit versus exclusive use? Yeah, it's easier to sell, it's easier to deal with, but generally speaking, older ones, you'll find they're exclusive use. Okay, and same with the law. Can you have a pet? If the declaration says no pets, it's 80% of the owners to change that, which is almost impossible to do that, is change a declaration for pets. And the most important part of the declaration is how much you own in the building. So in other words, depending on your square foot, you actually own a piece of the building, right? Because, and the principle of every condominium is that 100% of the owners have to own 100% of the building. That's the principle. So I'm going to just give you a simple example, just for illustration. Let's say a condominium had 21 bedrooms, 62, and 23, so 100 owners. Now, on average, the one bedrooms would be about 0.5% of the total, so the 20 owners together would own 10%. Let's say the two bedrooms were on average 1% of the entire building, 60 times 1 is 60%. And the three bedrooms, let's just say they were larger, the average is 1.5%, and that comes to 30%. So if you add up all of these numbers, you get 100%. So in some buildings where you see 400 owners, same thing, the 400 owners together own 100%. So the small ones will be 0.2%, larger ones 0.6%, but you see all of this in the declaration. This is the most important number, and it takes 90% of the owners to change. So it would take, it's impossible to change this. But you'll see why this is the most important number in a declaration as we go through. Okay. So the corporation has the responsibility to repair the common elements. That means everything that you're sharing. The unit owners are usually responsible for everything inside their unit. So an HVAC system, generally the owner, and if that would be lost, we should have a home inspection in a condo. Well, if the owners are responsible for everything inside, then sometimes it's worth having a home inspection. Decorative changes are okay to make. So you can make decorative changes, change the cabinets without permission. However, anything moving pipes or walls, you have to get permission of the board of directors. And in order to do that, it puts a bylaw that has to get registered on title. And it's called the Section 98 agreement. So people just don't have the right to make changes in a condo at their own whim. If it's something that goes, again, that is structural or walls or pipes, you have to get the board approval. It takes about $500. They pass this agreement, and you actually register on title to the unit so every buyer knows that that change was approved by the board. The insurance for the building covers to replace the building, so it will cover damage to the unit. However, it doesn't cover an owner's contents or improvements. So when you buy a condo, I explain this to people who say, is an insurance covered in my condo? I say, yes, but you have to pay for your contents. If you do improvements, like you do the cosmetic improvements, those aren't covered. And also, there's a deductible on every policy. So some of the policies have a $2,500 to $5,000. You know how deductible works. If something goes wrong, you have to pay the first part of the deductible. Some condominiums have $10,000 deductible. So when I tell people about this, buyers, I say, go to your insurance and see if you can cover improvements, contents, liability you have to get, but also see if they'll give you deductible insurance. So some insurance agents will do that. So I had one where they cut it down to $1,000. So they bought it down as part of your insurance premium that if something happens to your unit and you have to pay the deductible, let's say $5,000, it'll be cut to $1,000. But buyers have to understand this. They have to insure it. The major coverage is done by the building, but you still have to get insurance. So when people ask you, do I need insurance? That's one insurance. Was there a hand up? People warm? Colder. Yes. You didn't get one of those? Everything up there is in this handout. You have it, and you have my business card on anything. So the next, yeah. You had a question? Yeah.
Going back to the HVAC.
Yeah.
You have indicated, and we all assume that the heating is included in the maintenance fee, that everything is.
Yeah, it's not. It's like certain things are taken care of the maintenance, and there's usually instructions, especially in your condominiums. You get a welcome package, and it tells you exactly what you have to do to look after your HVAC so nothing goes wrong. How to change the filters, when to change it. So in most buildings in the last 10 years, when you move in, you get this little welcome and it shows you how to do that. It's not terribly expensive to do that. So then, once the builder gets everything approved, they build the building. And so then the building is ready for occupancy. Occupancy means somebody from the city has gone into the building and says it's safe enough for people to occupy. That doesn't mean the building is finished. But you see, the contract you have with the builder says when the city says it's ready to occupy, you must move in. That's why we call this thing an occupancy closing. Many of you have heard of an occupancy closing. That's why a condominium has to close first its occupancy, where you have to move in even though the building's not finished, because the city says it was safe for you to occupy. And this delay between the city saying you're ready to occupy and the building being finished, that's what causes the occupancy period. And it can be anywhere from 4 months to 1 year. Okay, but in my experience, it's usually 6 to 8 months. That means you're paying rent for 6 to 8 months, and a little later, I'll explain to you how they calculate rent. Yes.
Is it common to go more than a year? Because I've had it.
You know, sometimes I have seen it. But it's not common. That means they've had issues with the city, getting the inspectors out, but it's not common. But it's happened.
Yes.
Okay, I've seen especially some, I've saw a year and a half. Yeah, it is possible. So once the building is finished, the surveyor and the engineer, they go out and they have to certify that the building was finished according to the plans. That's what the description is, the building. So you see, when it's finished, the surveyor and engineer have to go to the building and certify that, yes, the builder finished this according to the original plans, because that's what the government approved, the original plan. And the certificate is attached to the description, which certifies the building is finished. So at that moment, the declaration and description are taken downtown to the registry office and registered on. And what they do there is they create a condominium corporation. And so the registry office will pick the next number available in their system. Okay, so they're now getting close to 2,800 condominiums in Toronto. Okay, so why is that helpful? Now, it is a little over 2,700, but this year they're getting close to 2,800. So why does that help? Because you see, that's how many are York Region and Peel. Peel is Mississauga, Brampton. York Region means, you know, Thornhill, Richmond Hill, Markham, and everything up there. So why is that important? Because you can tell me the number, I can tell you how old the building is. So if somebody says to me, my condominium is number 2,500, I know it's 2 to 2.5 years old. Because that's how the numbers are broken. 2000, oh, it's about the year 2009. Do you understand? If it's number 300, remember the first one they registered in 67, it means you're between 40 and 50 years old. So right away, I'm getting a sense of things going wrong, roofs needing replacements. You understand? And I can get this just from the condominium corporation number, and you can too. So why is this also important? So Kitech Plumbing is a big deal. And so I know that Kitech Plumbing was installed in condominiums between 1995 and 2007. So if I get a condominium with a number between 1,200 and 1,900, I'm already looking for Kitech Plumbing. Do you understand? It's a kicker for me to say, oh, check, we need that status certificate a little bit more carefully to make sure this Kitech Plumbing. Because I already know from the number, the age. Yes.
Is there any breakdown between your build and the number of the condominium number itself? Or something that will give us an idea of like if the condominium number is this one?
No, I just really,
Is
this
there like a
is
schedule?
just, no, there's no
Yeah,
schedule. I just have done so many of them.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm telling you, will this help you already? Will this help you already figure this out? So you see, just yourself having this, and you'll get good at it as you see these yourself. So, is there a difference between a condominium corporation and a regular business corporation? So there are some differences, legal differences. You just need to know them for a specific purpose. So when you're buying a regular business corporation, whether it's on the stock market or a private company, you buy shares in the company. you're familiar with this. You buy a share in a corporation. Condominiums have no shares. You're buying a unit and a percentage ownership of the building. So there's no such thing as shares in a condominium corporation. And this number two, the purpose of a business, why people incorporate, they want to make money. You know, that's the main reason people, you know, you have to pay extra taxes, extra things, filings. So people only do this because they want to make money. It's very, the purpose of the condominium is not to make money. It's to look after the common elements. You see, this is the principle that must guide every board of directors. They have to be bringing in enough money from the owners to make sure that the common elements, you know, the building is looked after today and in the future. So that for the future, that's why they're paying money for the reserve fund. So that is the main principle of condominiums, that it's nonprofit, but there has to be enough money to look after the building. The sad thing is that there's a fairly large percentage of buildings where there really is not enough money in the reserve fund to look after all the needed repairs because people were pressured not to give proper increases over the years because the owners claimed they had no money. So this is part of the problem when you're buying older buildings. Okay, and finally, a business corporation has limited liability. This is the main reason people incorporate, is because if you lose all your money in the corporation, you won't lose your house. They can't sue you personally if your corporation goes bankrupt. This is the main reason people incorporate. So that, God forbid, if the corporation goes bankrupt, they can't go after me and my house. That's the main reason. Well, a condominium has no limited liability. So what that means is if you own a unit in a condominium and there's a lawsuit and there's not enough money to pay the damages, every owner is responsible. So if somebody, let's say, slips outside your building and there's not enough insurance to pay, they can sue every owner in the building. That's what it means when we say a condominium has no limited liability. They couldn't if it's a business corporation. They could only sue a corporation. They can't sue you. Okay. The next step.
Sorry, I don't understand. That they can go after each owner?
Yes, they can go after each one. I'll explain how in a couple of minutes. But you can sue every owner in the building for a shortfall.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose of?
Well, let me explain. When I explain it, you'll understand. But the principle, they can sue every owner for the damages. Okay, that's the principle. So then they register bylaws. What the bylaws do is they explain who can be a director and how long is their term. So most of the bylaws relate to how do we elect directors, how long is their term. And it's usually a requirement that the director owns a unit in the building. But there are some buildings where they say, no, we can hire a director outside, maybe an accountant who can really help us, and they don't have to. I'm trying to get this from the principles. Somebody called Celeste back here. Sorry about that. Okay, so Celeste comes back. I'll just go from the handout. We can do this from the handout as well. Can you find it? Can you do this? So you got to get it back. Great. From Chris. Oh, terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Okay. So let's say you want to get rid of the directors. It takes 51% of the owners. So in my pretend condominium, it would take 51 of 100 owners to remove the directors. Not easy, but possible. And if you want to sue the corporation, there's all kinds of rules regarding mediation and arbitration that you have to go through if you ever want to sue a corporation. It takes a long time and it's very expensive. So what are the duties of a board of directors? They have two main duties. The first, make rules. And the rules are supposed to help people enjoy the building. So that's the principle. Anything that helps the people enjoy the building, the directors are allowed to pass rules. And if the owners don't like them, they can call a meeting to cancel a rule. That's how easy it is to pass a rule. So rules could relate to what time can you use the party room, when you could play tennis, swimming, visitors parking. Rule: nobody can park in visitors parking after 2 a.m. or your car gets towed. That's a rule passed by the board of directors. So you see, when you're buying into a building, it's important to look at rules besides the declaration. So as an example, a corporation, most of them allow pets. A lot of the older buildings do not allow pets. So if they don't allow pets, then only a person who has a requirement of a service animal can have a pet, because that's a human right issue. But if the declaration says no pets, it's no pets. So what some buildings have done, many, is in the rules, they've said no pet larger than 25 pounds. And it has been upheld as reasonable to protect the owners. For example, if there's a fire and everybody's running down the fire escape, they don't want large dogs maybe hurting people. So somebody challenged, and they said this rule is legitimate. So you see, that's what corporations can do. And some have tried to stop Airbnb this way by passing rules. And recently, cannabis. They are passing rules that say no smoking or growing of cannabis in any building. These are rules that can be passed by the corporation board of directors. So that's their main function. Now, let's say the owners don't like that. 15% of the owners, in my condominium 15, can then say they want to have a meeting to challenge a rule. And as long as a quorum shows up, so a quorum is usually 25% of the owners, meaning you have to have 25% of the owners at a meeting in order to have a meeting. But they can be there in person or proxy. So proxy means that, let's say somebody shows up to the meeting and they have 10 letters from other owners saying, you vote my share. So that's like he's there with 11. So if the majority of the meeting of 25 vote for a certain rule, they can overturn a rule. So those are the easiest things to sort of do in a condominium: pass rules, etc. So I think the main duty of the directors is to pass the budget. So the budget will tell you how much the maintenance is going to be in the coming year. And people ask me, is there a limit the directors can raise the money, the fees? The answer is no. They're supposed to get as much money as needed to look after the building. You understand? So in some buildings it's 2%, but it could be 10%. There's no rule. Their job is to make sure there's enough money to run the building. That's the only principle. So you can't promise anything that their raises are only going to be 1 or 2%. You have no idea. That's the main function of the director. And until we have something called a reserve fund study, which I'll explain, 10% extra has to be collected into the reserve fund. And so if more money is needed during the year, then we have something called a special assessment. Are those good or bad when you hear there's a special assessment? So it's bad, right? Because that means that you didn't budget well, and now people are being asked to spend more money. And if, let's say, the corporation wanted to make a major addition, like build a swimming pool, that takes 2/3 of the owner's part, if possible. So here's the key thing. How do you calculate how much everybody pays? So you see, what can we require payments? The most common is the maintenance fee, the budget, special assessment, and remember, lawsuits. Remember, all the owners are responsible. So the way it works is we go back to these numbers. I'll explain it how. Now this, remember, I just did this. So let's say the budget, for example, is $1 million. That includes the reserve fund. So 1% of $1 million is
Bless you.
If you have 0.5%, you would owe $5,000 in maintenance fees divided by 12. That's $450. So if you had a small one bedroom, you might owe $300. A larger one bedroom, it might be $500. You understand those prices? I just did this, to make it easy. Let's say you had a bigger unit that was 1%. Like pretend condominium, 1%, 10,000 divided by 12, $830 average. The bigger units, it works out to $1,245, $15,000. Now you see, if you're looking at a building with 500 units, it's not uncommon. You'll see some 300 a month, 500 a month, 700. Do you understand? It's all based on this principle. Based on, so you see, let's say there was a loss, $1 million. They sue everyone in the building, which means that the one bedrooms had to pay $5,000 each. The two bedrooms had to pay $10,000 each. The three bedrooms had to pay $15,000. You understand? So every owner would be responsible for their share of a special assessment lawsuit budget. Do you understand? So somebody might sue everybody, but that's how you calculate how everybody pays. That's why I said in the declaration, those numbers are the most important. And so it's always based on the declaration. So let's say an owner doesn't pay their share. Okay, if an owner doesn't pay their share, a lien is registered against them. And it costs $1,000 to remove a lien. And at the same time, the corporation will tell your lender that you're in default of maintenance fees or payments, and that constitutes a default on a mortgage, because every mortgage on a condominium says you don't make your maintenance fees. It's power sale. So there's a lot of pressure on it. So that's what happens when you don't pay your share, whether it's mostly for maintenance fees, but it could be special assessments or lawsuits. Does that help you understand how they do this? Does that help? Okay. And so this is how corporations today deal with, let's say, Airbnb. So if somebody's doing Airbnb against the rules, the lawyer for the corporation will send a letter to the owner saying that we've had complaints and we've investigated this, and you are, putting your unit out on Airbnb against the rules. And so stop. And if you don't, because I had to send this letter, you have to pay me $750 with HST. And if you don't pay the $750, we put a lien against your unit. So this is what corporations do to try to enforce their rules. People are, bothering others. And it would be the same with cannabis. If there's rules against cannabis and you're smoking and bothering people, you're going to get letters, liens, etc. That's how corporations legally have to deal with owners who violate the rules. Okay, most condominiums, it's not legally required, but they have a professional management company that assists. It's not legally required. It's possible for a corporation to do it themselves. However, I'm suspicious when I don't see a name that I recognize as a property manager, because when I see a good property management name like Dell or Brookfield or First Service, you understand, when I recognize the names, then I know that these people are probably giving the board good advice, and that helps my own peace of mind, because it's almost impossible to understand absolutely everything. So, reserve fund study. So every 3 years, a corporation is supposed to have a reserve fund study done or an update. And what that means is get accountants and engineers that go into the business. And what they're doing is they're trying to determine, okay, over the next 30 years, what are we going to have to do in this? Well, after 20 years, we're going to have to replace the roof. After 30 years, we're going to have to replace or seriously repair the underground garage. I'm giving you a couple of examples. So the accountants are saying, well, if we increase the amount into the reserve fund by 2 to 3% every year, will there be enough money in 20 years to pay for it? And that's what a reserve fund study is telling you. This is how much money we expect to be in the reserve fund at the end of each year. But now you see why it has to be updated every 3 years, because things change. people can't predict with certainty. So every 3 years, it's updated. So that's one of the things, the key things you're looking for. Is there going to be enough money coming in to pay for major repairs? So what's more important, the actual amount of money in the reserve fund or the reserve fund study? If you were looking at papers, what would be more important? The money the corporation has or the reserve fund study, which says how much money should be in the reserve fund at the end of it. Anybody? Really what I wanted to try to explain is both. To understand, there's no magic rule. You know, in one condominium, $1 million might be terrific. But in another condominium, $1 million is no good if the study says they should have $3 million. That means they're short from what was predicted. So you see, as a lawyer, you have to look at both. And I have to understand how what the studies say and how much actually is in the reserve fund and loan. So in a resale deal, what are you usually looking for? You should be looking at the declaration in the rules, what's permitted, not permitted, how much are the maintenance fees, are there special assessments, are there lawsuits, what's the reserve fund say, how many units are rented? You know, that's important too. Many buildings have 80% rented. You know, those buildings are probably not as good care of as owner-occupied units. So where do you find all of this information? In the status certificate. So you see, this is why the status certificate is the most important document in a resale condominium, because it has the answers.
Are rented?
Yeah, well, no, it'll tell you in the status certificate how many units are rented. So what I said is there are some buildings where it says, you know, there's 400 units, 300 are rented to tenants. So you figure out the percentage yourself. It will tell you exactly, in most cases, how many units are rented.
So if you want to get that information without.
Status certificate.
That's the only way to get it.
I'm not sure how else you can find it.
I mean,
It's usually,
would the property manager
it's
tell you?
clause 24. I mean, you call the management company, they would have the record, but it's much easier to look at the status. So,
And what percentage of that rental in the building would bring on the flag?
is what?
What percentage of rental in the building will make the flag come on?
You know, it's, you know, as to whether it's a red flag,
Right.
I have not seen a lender refuse to mortgage a building because they were a high tenant. But when people ask me the question about, you know, lawyers having the ability, you know how many of these deals are conditional on lawyer approval of status certificates? If I find a large percentage rented, I could refuse to approve it on that basis. Right? Just on that basis, I could say, I'm not approving the building because a large percentage is rented, the buyer didn't know, and so we're canceling the deal. So people ask me that. And I try to answer, lawyers can probably find any defect in a status certificate. So I tell sellers, just don't get upset about it, just deal with it, and you'll find the buyer the building. So when somebody calls me saying, Mark, I have a status certificate to review, that's my first question. Please tell me, you're an agent, how many units have closed in the building in the last week? Why is that? Because if units have closed, what does that mean?
The other people read the status and there's
It
probably
means
nothing.
5 lawyers have already looked at the status certificate. You understand? And 5 lenders, and CMHC, probably approved. Do you understand? So if somebody tells me that, I already know 80%. I'm going to approve this one. But you should ask that too, because that'll help you as well. What is the number? As I said earlier, the corporation number helps determine how old the building is. Remember this. I've seen like this morning, I get a certificate where they send me the agreement of purchase and sale. It's already signed January, a couple of days ago, January 13th, and it says closing February 13th. So that's fine. But I looked at the date on the status certificate. It was October the 1st. You see, somebody ordered a status certificate early, or it said November the 1st. So the status certificates are only good for 90 days. So that means that the status certificate will expire February 1st. And this is closing at the end of February. I'm going to have to pay $100 for another sponsor. closing, buyer's gonna have to pay. So be careful about closing dates and the date of the status. Now, the reserve fund study should be close to the reserve fund. So when I see a reserve fund of 2.2 million, I'm looking for a study from anywhere between 1.9 and 2.5, because it depends what time of the year you're doing it, but you want to make sure that the number in the study, what is the study doing? It's predicting how much money will be there at the end of each year versus how much money is actually in reserve. So as long as there's some correlation, I'm satisfied. You understand? Pass. So that's the thing you always have to understand. The rules will have weight restrictions, so you got to make sure you do. Like I had one where it said one dog or one cat. Very clear. And this woman said, I have two very small kittens that will never leave the apartment. I said, I can't guarantee you. Somebody tells on you, if the board is very picky about this, you're going to lose. One cat, and she didn't buy it because of the rule that said one cat, one dog. So you must understand the pet rules. Is that a question you want to have?
Is there an interval in which these status certificates are updated by the corporation, or is it just always current?
No, they have an obligation to give a current status certificate. So if they have a problem that they didn't disclose in their status certificate you bought, you're not.
Something happens today, right? That affects the information in the status certificate, and I order it tomorrow. They would be obligated to include that information.
If they have to put something in if they know something.
Right.
Yeah.
So what if it's vice versa? So what if I buy a condo today and I don't close until May, and something happens in that?
Most lawyers, again, before closing, to make sure that, number one, all the maintenance fees are controlled. And it's very rare, that you get something that happens right now. You understand, it's very rare. So again, rules, no smoking, no Airbnb. So these are rules that you're looking for as well.
Most buildings have that no Airbnb rule.
No, some say nothing. Some will allow Airbnb. So there's a building, I think it's 15 floors downtown, where they allow Airbnb. And I spoke with the property manager, and he said that the air rules say you have to register the concierge. People have to show identification and pay a fee, $50 or something a night for this to the corporation. And they have maybe a couple of problems in the last year. But it's right in their condominium rules that it's allowed. And it would just take a week to get it. So it depends on the owner.
Sorry.
Yes.
There is the bylaw says no Airbnb, and one of the owners does it regardless.
Yeah, they can go after them. Remember, lawyer letters, liens, or even court actions to get them to stop. And it's very expensive when a corporation sues an owner, and the owner has to pay all the legal costs if they lose. So it is expensive. So for exclusive use, you see, normally when you get a status certificate, the unit is displayed on the front. So it'll say right on it, unit 7 level 3, parking unit 36 level A, locker 277 level B. So it's right there on the status certificate. If it's an exclusive use, it's usually not on the status certificate. So what you have to do, you go to Schedule F of the declaration. So if you turn to Schedule F, it always has the exclusive use number. So as an example, this morning I had to look at an older building where the parking spaces were exclusive use. So on Schedule F, it said every unit will have the exclusive use of the following parking spaces. And I went down to my unit 7, level 3, and then it said parking space A78. So you see, that's what it means. It's not, it's granted in the declaration, but that's how you find it out. Now, I always tell people, I know a lot of buyers do this. I say, go and stand in front of the locker and your parking space, because too many times after closing, there's complaints that somebody's got stuff in my locker, it's in a different place. You know, I would always suggest you get your buyer to stand in front of the parking space and the locker before they sign it off. Make sure, especially when you're dealing with an estate, you have your locker in the parking space set up. Okay. If there are issues with the reserve, okay, so a lot of lawyers, when they see a low reserve fund that's below the reserve fund study, they just refuse to approve the certificate. They say, I'm sorry, I'm not approving the cancel the deal. And yeah, it's easy for lawyers to cancel the deal. The fact is, one of the reasons you're getting the building for the price that you're getting is because, you know, it's not perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect building. I prefer to look. And what I say solutions, I'm going back to the percent. Remember the percent. So let's say I look in the building, there's 200 units. Okay, I just know there's 200. And I see that there could be $1 million short in the reserve. So if I'm looking at this, I'm saying, and it says usually in the certificate that they have not called the special assessment. So even though I see there's a problem, the corporation doesn't seem to be terribly worried. So what I would say to the owner is this: you probably own 0.5% of this building. You know, I just do a quick calculation. 0.5% times 200 is numbers. So if they happen to call in the next year for $1 million from all the owners to fund the reserve fund, what would your share be? $5,000. So get a $5,000 purchase price and go away. Do you understand? Because that's the limit of what you're going to pay. Do you understand? And just decide what you want to do. You go to the seller and say, you know, there's a problem with the reserve. Because I'd rather they worked it out than just say cancel, cancel, cancel. Because cancel, cancel, cancel doesn't get the deal done. And there are a lot of lawyers that will just say, because they don't have responsibility. And I say, no. So your share will be $5,000. But what's the problem? The problem with this is if you're not paying 20%. So if you're not paying 20% of the amount, you have to give it to CMHC. If this is a very low reserve fund, CMHC may have a problem with the building. They may. So what I say is, you know, ask the lender first. Because normally there's also a financing condition. I say, go to your lender, tell them to call CMHC and make sure there's no flag on this reserve fund. Because if there's a flag, just because I say take $5,000, you're not going to get the mortgage. Do you understand? So I have to be aware of that too. But this is the way I advise people in order to get this done. Do you understand? In order to get this done. So let's say they're negotiating. This is a clause I've given to try to help you deal with it. So the seller might say, you want $5,000, but there's no special assessment that's been called. Why should we give you $5,000? So instead, I said, okay, instead, here's a clause that says we're going to hold back $5,000 on it for 2 years. And if in the next 2 years, a special assessment is called for, you understand? It's going to come out of the hole. Or if maybe in any year, in the next 2 years, goes up more than 5%. So let's say maintenance fee goes up to 10%. That difference between 5 and 10% is going to get paid out of what? The whole. And after 2 years, whatever's left goes back to the seller. So you see, I did this to try and put into words, you know, a compromise. Understand, the seller doesn't want to give a reduction, but the buyer has this possibility. Now, so I usually start. In other words, I say to the agent, use this clause and put it into the amendment. So they put in both my projects. What do you think results as a result of this?
They gotta take the 5,000 off the price.
Usually what they do is the seller comes back and says, we're not going to offer you 2.5. You understand? And usually, because remember, I don't know what I'm giving the worst case scenario, $1 million. I don't know yet. But I find that at least by starting with this, you usually get to a price reduction. A price reduction is the best way to do it. You understand? That's the best way to do it. You understand the concept where I'm trying to accomplish. So before we get to new condominium protections, which I'm going to cover, I put some on the slides. Make a note of this. You want to find out how old the condominium is and how many units are. The best place is the financial statements. If you take a look at the financial statements, they're always included in the status certificate. And if you look at usually the first note, so they have about 7-8 pages of financial graphs and charts and garbage, and then there's notes. There's about 11 notes. The first note tells you exactly when the building was registered. So that will tell you exactly how old the building is. Say this corporation was registered in 1988. So that tells me right away it's 31 years. And then it says, for a nonprofit condominium corporation, to look after blank units, 302 units, 278, 5 years. So just from the first note, it's a cheat sheet. You could find out when the building was registered and how many units. Just from that note. So these are some of the tricks I'm going for. So you see, when somebody says to me, how do you do a status certificate? So I already know what I'm doing. I look at the status certificate, which is 4 to 5 pages, very carefully. Because it'll tell you if there's a safety assessment, lawsuit, high-tech plumbing. High-tech plumbing on average is $5,000 for 1 bedroom, $7,500 for 2 bedroom, to $10,000 for a 3-bedroom to move. So that's my advice whenever I see high-tech plumbing. I tell the buyer, this is what's going to cost you to remove. Just deal with this in an amendment to the purchase price. So the status certificate is the most important document. But then, you know, it'll tell me in the status certificate how much money's in the reserve. So I quickly look at Form 15, which is the reserve fund study. It takes me 2 seconds. I find the prediction and I make sure it matches. Then I'll read the notes of the financial statements. Does that mean also have an indication of old lawsuits or special assessments? So I'll read those. The rules, very important. If you're looking for no smoking, pets, doesn't take long to review. The rules, insurance, I see the deductible. And the declaration, you know, will have what maintenance and repairs are obligations. So, you know, that's why I can look at all these documents. Then I prepare my report. I'm not telling you, but you see, it's not that complicated. You shouldn't be afraid of it. It's not that hard to go through it yourself. How many of you think that you should get the status certificate and give it out? Yeah, I happen to be a big believer. I mean, it's $100, but the reason I like that is because you'll find out if you see right away there's not a study doesn't have, then you can already maybe start speaking to a couple of lenders to see if this building's on a flag and won't waste any money market, you know. And if you see, and also the biggest headache is when you order a status certificate after a deal is accepted, you know it could take 5 to 10 days. Just for your information, if you pay an extra $100 to $200 on top of your $100, you can get it delivered within 2 days. But you have to pay more money than the regular $100. So you see, the problem is you have a bidding war. You accept one offer, conditional on status. It takes 10 days to arrive. The buyer cancels. Every other buyer is gone, and you can't get it back. So this is why I'm a big believer in having a status certificate in advance. Give it out to the buyers and then let them make their own. So if I see an offer in advance and I see it's got title plumbing, I tell the buyer, just reduce whatever you're going to offer by $5,000. because you'll have this type of responsibility. So, you know, I think it is a better thing before we start spending more money on this. Okay, so new condominium production. So let's say you're buying that condominium. So you went into a sales office. So a builder, besides signing the contract, so he's going to sign a contract, you know, that's 50. The builder is also going to give you disclosure. And the disclosure includes 3 documents. Remember, this is when you go to the sales center, the building is not going to be finished in 4 years. So they have to give you what the declaration is going to look like, all the provisions. They have to give you the description, which is, you know, what the building, you know, the plans are, so you can see what the plans are. And they have to give you a first year. So in other words, the builder has to estimate in 3 or 4 years, how much is it going to cost to run the building in the first year? So you see, what is the declaration? Your percentage ownership. If you have your percentage ownership plus the budget, you already can figure out your maintenance fee in the first year. You can already figure it out at the sales office. This is how much my maintenance fee is going to be, because it's always the same. It's your percentage times the budget. That's what it is. And then you have 10 days to do it. So you see, this is the only buyer's remorse in Ontario. When you buy a brand new house from a builder, there is no such thing as buyer's remorse. You're stuck. But if you buy a brand new condominium from a builder, you have 10 days to change it. So let's understand it. So let's say you signed the deal on June 16th, and they gave you the disclosure package and the agreement on June 16th. You can cancel your deal at any time up to June 26th. You don't have to give a reason. You just say, I cancel. But the key is the disclosure. So let's say you signed the deal with the builder on June 16th, but the disclosure package, for whatever reason, was not ready. And they called you back on August 15th and said, guess what? The disclosure is now here. Come and pick it up. You have until August 25th to change your mind. It's the reason we say 10 days from acceptance. Over 90% of the time, the builder is handing you 2 documents when you buy a condo, giving you the declaration, or the disclosure booklet, and the new agreement. But that's what the law says. Now, let's say 2 years down the road, the builder is building the building, but because the city requires access on a certain road, they can't build this one. Understand? So that they promised everything, but now they're building the building, they can't build this one. So you see, this is what we would refer to as a material change. So with the material change, they have to send out in 2 years a new disclosure. So they have to say to the owners, you know what? We changed the disclosure. There's going to be no swimming. And the owners will take 10 days from receipt of that new disclosure to get out of the deal. Now, most of the time when this happens, why will the owners not cancel? Because they figure it's already gone up in value and they will cancel. But, you know, today, I'm not so sure. If somebody bought 2 years ago and finds out there's been a material change, the buyers could walk away. They could walk away with it. And so that's what we mean by material change. Another protection is that if the budget turns out higher in the first year, so let's say you were promised a budget of $1 million and your share was $400, and then you find out in the first year that it was actually $1.2 million, and your share is closer to $500 a month, the builder has to pay the difference in the first year. So the builder will usually estimate high so that they don't have to pay any shortfall. But that is a protection you get when you buy a brand new condo. And there are lots of other provisions in a brand new agreement, and this is why most people come to me with new condo agreements to review. And some of the things you have to watch for are their rights to assign. Sometimes there are, sometimes there are not. Sometimes there are $10,000 fees, sometimes it's $1,000. Can you lease your unit during occupancy? So sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. And finally, the additional charges.
Also, put it, you could put it on MLS.
Yeah, most builders, even if they give the rental sign, they will not allow you to put it on. But the additional charges, these are hidden in many cases. And in my experience over 30 years, the charges should be an additional 1 to 2%. So I usually say to people, if it's fair, you're paying $500,000, you would expect on closing additional charges between $5 and $10. And this is why you try to get that the charges will not exceed those dollars. I'm always trying to get to that 1 to 2%. But there's no rule about 1 to 2%. But the buyer has to be made aware of all the additional charges that are in the Okay, so now we come to the occupancy. So remember, what's this? This could be where the city says the building is ready, so it's ready for you to move in, but you can't get title because the building is not registered. So you have to pay rent for sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year. This is rent. So let's understand how it's calculated. So it's made up of 3 amounts for rent. The first is interest on the balance of money owed. So let's say you bought a condo for $500,000, and at occupancy you've already paid $100,000 in deposits. So at that moment you owe the builder $400,000. So the first amount you're going to pay as rent is interest only on $400,000 and $3.1. That's been the rate for years. And they haven't raised the interest enough that will be minimum. So you calculate 3% on 400,000, and then you divide by 12, and whatever monthly payment is, that's your interest only fee. The second will be your maintenance fee. Remember, you know what your maintenance fee is because it's in the budget you got in the declaration, where it was $400. So let's say the interest works out to be $1,100, and the maintenance fee is $400. That's $1,900, and then they estimate property taxes. So based on the mill rate, 0.8%. So if it's 1%, it's 500,000, 4,000 divided by 350%. So you see, it's always different. There's no formula because it's always based on those 3 numbers: interest, maintenance fee, taxes. I pretend numbers, it's about $1,800. You have to give postage checks for $1,800 to the builder, and they just take them. So that later, when you close the deal, you actually pay for this. You see, when you close the deal, you give the builder the $400,000, and you get title, and you pay the bank. Your bank interest and principal on $400. You pay the maintenance fees for rent, and you pay the property taxes when the city sends you the property tax. So that's how occupancy, the payments work. Does that help you to understand that? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Question.
Or is it if somebody paid cash, what percentage would they use? Somebody give them 500,000 cash for a year.
Yeah, it is possible in the first 10 days to pay the whole amount in cash to the builder. If you did that, you would pay interest on 500,000 dollars. You just have to pay the maintenance fee and the taxes. When people ask me about that, should we pay it all up front so we don't have to pay the interest on occupancy? My advice is don't do that, because how do you know in 4 years if you might need that money? Or over 4 years, because when you give it to the builder, you give it to the builder. So it's rare that somebody will want to pay it all just to avoid this interest payment for 8 months. I find that it's rare that somebody does that, but it's possible. Okay, co-op. So have any of you ever dealt with a co-op? Okay, so let me explain what a co-op is. So a private co-op is that the building is actually owned by a real business corporation. So let's say you have a 40 apartment building, and it's owned by a company, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Ontario. Okay, so it's a corporation, not a condo. It's a corporation that owns a building that has 30 apartments. The corporation will then give out 30 shares. So, you see, it's a business corporation. So when you're buying, you're actually buying a share. So when you buy into this, you get a share in this corporation, and that share entitles you to live in it. That's the principle of a private co-op. And the owners will sign, the 30 owners will sign this agreement which governs their relationship as owners. In my experience, this is really like a declaration, bylaws, and rules all rolled together. There's going to be a board of directors, there's going to be maintenance fees, there's going to be a reserve fund. You understand the proper private condo, but it's not a condo. So, what are the differences? And the differences will explain to you why it's harder to sell a co-op than a condo. It's harder to sell. And they don't get it. And here are the reasons. You don't get title in a co-op. You understand? You get a share. But if you look on title, the name is not there. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Ontario. That's a problem. And because you don't get title, it's very hard to get financing. You can't get a mortgage because there's nothing to register your mortgage. So you'll have to arrange some kind of line of credit elsewhere to get the cash to buy this. So that's the main problem in a co-op.
You need 30% down usually to get any financing.
Well, again, what do you finance? There's no mortgage for security. That's the problem. Then you're a little bit more responsible for your neighbor. What do I mean for that? Like you see, in a condominium, everybody gets their own tax. You pay your taxes, the city leaves you alone. If your neighbor doesn't pay their taxes, the city can go after your neighbor. In a co-op, it's one tax bill for the whole building. So let's say $60,000. Well, every owner, it says, pays $2,000 towards property. Well, let's say 3 owners don't pay. The other owners have to pay, otherwise the building's in default of property taxes. So that's what I mean, obviously you're a little bit more responsible. And in over 95% of co-ops, you must get to approve it for everybody. I've never seen this. So in other words, because of the financial interconnection, boards want to approve credit and other things every buyer. And it's, if you look at the co-op agreement, it has a clause right in the condition on board approval. So this is why it's harder to sell a co-op, but I still do. And just for your information, you have to pay land transfer tax when you buy a co-op. So even though there's no title change, you understand there's nothing on title, a land transfer tax says that I have to pay land transfer tax on the day of closing. So I have to send the money in, even though there's no record. You understand? This person has the share, the lawyer who understands the rules. I have to pay the land transfer. On behalf of So, is there a question?
Yeah, what's the benefit of
The benefit really is
Cheaper.
many of them are trying to become homeowners. So they're going to the government to try to get registered. I still think it's better, right? Renting, you get no ownership equity built up here. You get something. It's interesting when you ask the question. New York City, half the buildings are co-ops, half the buildings are condominiums, and it's exactly the same difference. And co-ops are just as expensive as condominiums. So you would ask, why? You understand why? In New York, makes no difference. And the reason is, in New York, the ability to approve a buyer is what people pay. Do you understand? They like it. So an example, most buildings, upscale, they will not allow a celebrity to buy in the building. And you would ask, why don't they allow celebrities to have so much money? Because they don't want to cameras in there taking pictures, and they don't want the security entourage that comes with every celebrity. Would you like to be in an elevator with a couple of monsters who were there as security for the writer? And so they don't let him in the building. Richard Nixon had to retire to California because no building in New York would let him move in after he resigned as president. So, but here, co-ops are low in value. It just is. But you just needed to understand, you're still going to be asked for a status certificate. And person on share. Yes.
Is this more in the past? I've encountered only old buildings in this with this construction.
Yeah, in the 80s and 90s, there was a mechanism where apartment building owners could convert the buildings into co-ops. It wasn't that hard. And then the government stopped it because they were completing rental housing. So that's when you had a number of buildings get in. And because the owners make more money selling shares in this than renting a building. So that's how they were created in general. But in the last 10 years, they tried to ownership. I've seen a couple, and I'll just explain it to you in case you ever see it. They tried to overcome co-op problem. So that's what they tried to overcome. So the original owner could be a company, it could be a private person. And so what they do is they actually give small ownership. So I'll give you an example. You have a building with 50 apartments, and it's owned by a corporation. So the corporation, let's say every apartment is exactly the same size, just to make it easy for them to understand. So what they will do is for every buyer in that building, they're going to hand them a deed for 2% ownership of the property. So the idea is there will be 50 tenants in common. You understand? The buyer on title will be 50 buyers, everybody owns 2%. And
Oh my goodness, man.
if you own 2% of the building, you can go to the bank and say, give me a mortgage on my 2%. You understand? At least you could theoretically go and ask for more. In principle, though, it's very hard. You know, it's unless you have 2% of the Yorkdale, it's going to be very hard for you to go to the bank and get a mortgage on your 2%. So usually, the builder arranges the for everybody. They can buy 2% and take a little piece of this mortgage. There's a few of these. You won't see many of them, but that's what it is. That's what it is. Okay. Timeshares. The last little bit is timeshares. How many of you? Question?
In this small building, let's say 20 units, if you got 11 units, would you get control of the building? If you own 11 units in that building?
When you say control, are you talking about a condominium that has 20 units?
Co-op.
A co-op.
20 units. Now I own 11 units of that building.
Yeah, well, you see, remember, if you own 11 shares, right, you own 11 shares, out of 20 shares. Remember, the ownership agreement that everybody signs will also say how decisions are made. So you could say that major decisions require 80% of the owner. So then owning 11 shares is not going to help. So it will depend.
That's the also co-op.
Yeah, well, again, every co-op will have their own ownership agreement with all owners, so it could be different. How many owners does it take to share, to change something, to do something? You can't make a general statement. It depends what the ownership document said originally. Okay, timeshares. Does anybody own a timeshare in the room? Do any of you own a timeshare? You don't have to be embarrassed. Does anybody own a timeshare? You do? You do? No, don't buy one. Okay, they're very hard to sell. My experience over the years, they offer nice things, but very hard to sell in timeshare. You're buying time. You understand? You buy a week. Let's say you buy the first Saturday in January. Because in January every year from the first Saturday, you have 1 week. and you're paying, but it's like a condominium. It's just you're buying time in a condominium. So they don't sell all the weeks because they have to use some weeks to do maintenance and repairs. And so, but that's what you want in a timeshare. If you want to be, I don't really teach people how to be great sellers. I try to help people with this kind of information. But if you want to just go up to Condos, take somebody, significant other, and take a walk through the village at lunchtime, you'll be accosted into buying a timeshare. Trust me, leave your wallet at home or you're going to come home. They are the best at overcoming any objection you could possibly see. If you want to be a good salesperson, just go there and learn from them. Those timeshare salespeople, they're the best. Okay, and so there are two ways you can get title to a timeshare. You can actually get a deed for a week in a condominium, but also you can get a lease. Some timeshares are set up as the builder owns all the units and they just give you a lease for a week. So it's two different kinds of timeshares. They operate exactly the same way. You have to review all the restrictions. You won't be able to decorate your timeshare because other people are coming. So that's the magic with a timeshare. And the only other thing is I gave you a condominium rental clause so that, remember, under the government lease, which I have here, you can add clauses. So this is a clause to add for tenants in the government lease so that they have to follow all the rules and comply with everything, including, and that will cover you with cannabis and everything else related to that. So I think that is the end of our session today. How many of you enjoyed it? Did you learn something today? Thank you. So I think, somebody check, because I think Celeste arranged lunch to come, but I don't see it outside. So if somebody can call Celeste, he has lunch coming, but I'll take questions now. And if anybody wants to, remember, give me a business card. And if anybody wants to pick up my new landlord guide or one of my books, they're just $20 if you want to pick one up. But give me your business cards. And are there any questions? Yes.
So where this clause is useful is that as an owner, you're responsible if your tenant breaks the bylaws, and this gives you the leverage.
You can go after the tenant to evict them because you have to pay money as a result of the tenant's action. Correct. Yeah, well, you can ask for it. The question is the tenant going to be able to collect it? You'll be able to get the money if you go to court or the landlord and tenant board, but are you going to be able to collect it? Different story. Those always are different stories. Yeah.
Is there any difference between buying construction condos and construction homes? You said that there was no cooling off period for like 3 months or anything.
Thank you. Okay, well, number one is you don't have a 10-day cooling off period in the home purchased from a builder, which means that you've got to be careful to say, get a condition in there on lawyer approval. Some builders will give you a 5-day buyer lawyer approval. Some builders will say no. And the reason they say no is because they tell me, look, this is a hot site. People have to register for the appointment. Other people lose out. We're not going to let this person change their mind and then screw up everything. So they won't do that. But sometimes what they might do is give you the agreement in advance so that you could send it to a lawyer and say, I'm going to meet with the builder on Saturday to look over the agreement. It will really, a lot of it is the same. What are the additional charges that the builder charges? And there's always a section on additional charges. So it's the same principle, just different charges to look for. But again, sometimes with homes, it's easier to check the reputation of a builder than the home because they've done other sites. Easily, I tell people, we'll drive to another site and see what they built. That's the best research you can do on a builder. With condos, not always do you see other buildings they've done, in general. Some, yes, but like, if you hear it's a Mattamy home, It's like, I don't have to know they're fair, et cetera. Let's say it's Brookfield Home. They've been building houses for 30 years. I took a look at their new home agreement. They don't put a cap on any levies, no cap. And, you know, when I was started my career, I was at a law firm where we did Brookfield work. So I called one of my former partners there and I said, how come Brookfield doesn't put a cap? You know, you've been doing work for them for 30 years. He said, they never put a cap. They won't. But they've never had to pay it in 30 years because they budget right. Remember, the additional levies is if you have not budgeted for them. You're asking for more money at the end. And they just do it right, so they don't charge anything. I have to explain this to a buyer, but I'm also comforted because I know what they've been doing for 30 years. Oh, so our food is here. So I want to thank everybody for coming. You can also come up to me afterwards for questions. Did you enjoy it today?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, we know that.
So we just finished in time. Good to see you.
You're great.
Thank you. And I think I didn't, except for I lost the presentation for a minute, but somebody found it.
Yeah.
I think everything is on the, I didn't